Welcome to the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel. Today I'm joined by the big man Bakar for another Gameweek 16 preview. Bakar, great to have you back on the channel, my friend. As it stands, obviously, with a couple of games still to play tonight, for context, we're recording this on Thursday morning. Another green arrow. It's becoming a little bit of a habit, my friend. 8 in a row.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jack. Hello and welcome to all the listeners and viewers. I mean, I'm on a green arrow right now. It's slim, so I mean, it might not stand if by this time.
That's why we're recording before the
if,
games tonight to guarantee that it's a green.
If Trippier smashes it or Lascelles smashes it, I mean, I'm relatively well covered with Dubravka and the Newcastle defense, but and I'd rather not want a attacking return from any of their defenders. But yeah, overall, this seems like the kind of week where you're not going to gain much, you're not going to lose much. I was happy to have Palmer and MBEUMO, but pretty much everyone has MBEUMO. Palmer's points were nice, but I suspect Gordon can come close to matching him tonight, so it might not really matter. Defense was a bit of a shit show for everyone, so I don't really think that makes too much of a difference this week. So yeah, the margins were that fine this week that I was actually celebrating Darwin outscoring Watkins by 2 points, because that could literally be the difference between a green or a red arrow for me this week.
Wow.
Because yeah, that's actually a proper swing, because there's actually a proper split in the community in the owners of Darwin. I mean, 50-50. Some people have Watkins, some people have Darwin. So even a 2-point swing is fine, even though it's negligible. But in a week like this where points are hard to come by, I'll take it.
Yeah, to be honest, I would have kind of hoped for more, but I guess the start wasn't 100% assured. Yeah. And can't be too disappointed with outscoring Watkins, who is still very highly owned, even if it is only by 2 points.
And now we know that Darwin is going to start the next fixture against Crystal Palace.
Well, I hope so. I probably wouldn't say I'm as bullish as you, but you'd hope that says rest now. Just only because, I don't know, Gakpo, in my opinion, has been playing well of late. In Europe, playing well again. Of course, it's likely that Darwin will start. I couldn't say 100% he's going to, personally.
I think Darwin is clearly first choice, in my opinion. Yeah, absolutely.
I hope so too. I really, really do hope so. And Klopp was positive as well.
I would be shocked if he didn't start.
Okay. Well, that is good to hear. That is reassuring. Let's get onto your team for Gameweek 16 now. The main issue, MBEUMO. What do we do with him? First of all, I want to hear your thoughts on how serious you think the injury is. Obviously, it's hard to know, but recording this on Thursday morning, what do you know so far about MBEUMO's prospects for the weekend?
Well, we know that he rolled his ankle yesterday. That's what Thomas Frank indicated in the press conference. Historically, he hasn't picked up a lot of injuries throughout his career. So even if he has, he's shrugged them off and he's been fine. Given the short turnaround, it's just a 3-day turnaround. In fact, the game is on Saturday for Brentford. It's horrible timing given that it's Sheffield United. Yeah. And we bought him for this fixture specifically. I think it's looking bleak. But of course, we'll wait for the press conference tomorrow, because that makes a lot of sense. You don't really want to be in a position where you're selling MBEUMO just before Sheffield, just to catch a potential price rise from one of the replacements you're buying. So obviously waiting makes sense, but as of now, if you were to ask me, I think it looks bleak.
So let's say he is out and we get that confirmation, or maybe we don't, but we're pretty sure he is going to be. Talking about replacements, who have you got your eye on?
I would, before discussing the replacements, I think if he misses this game, he's a sell, because if he's missing this fixture, then he has Villa away, which isn't the easiest fixture, because Villa at home are really, really good. We saw that last night as well. And then he's going to blank again in Gameweek 18. So in my opinion, if MBEUMO is missing this fixture, then he's a sell. Because if he's missing 2 of the next 3 and Villa away is the other fixture, then there are much better options than him. And as of now, at the time of recording, it is looking very unlikely now that the double Gameweek in 20 is going to go ahead. Because this is one major piece of information that could change our thinking going forward, because in our previous weeks when we were doing these preview shows, Jack, we were assuming that City and Brentford will have a double in 20, but as of now it is looking unlikely. So if it is unlikely, then there's all the more reason to sell MBEUMO, and I guess Gameweek 18 becomes easier to navigate in that way, because it's sort of a perfect storm that you can sell MBEUMO and then you can get someone who has a good fixture in Gameweek 18. Yeah,
I think even without this injury, to be fair, a lot of us with that news that perhaps double Gameweek 20 is looking less and less likely would maybe have sold him anyway. To be fair, could have held him, but with the abundance of options that there are in midfield for cheaper than his current price of 7.1, it seems like a pretty obvious move to move down. So then, in terms of replacements, who would you be looking at this week if you are to sell MBEUMO?
I think in isolation, when you look at the numbers, I was looking at the non-pen XGI per 90 of midfielders this season. Gordon was 0.5, Bowen was 0.5, Palmer is 0.46, Sterling is 0.41. So these are the guys who kind of stand out, but just given their prices, because Gordon and Palmer are sort of matching the rest, the likes of Bowen and Sterling, for underlying data and underlying statistics, I would just go with them because of the fixtures and mainly because of their price. Because buying someone like a Palmer, buying someone like a Gordon, or even both in your team, in fact, I think both will be template this week. Just buying them allows you to have that flexibility to upgrade in the rest of your squad. So, for example, for someone like me who has Darwin, I'll be looking to get Watkins in Gameweek 18 because Watkins is Sheffield United at home and he's the standout captaincy option there. So getting Gordon means that I can get to Watkins in one move. So that's important for me. And similarly, I assume it will be the case for a lot of other people who've jumped on Darwin. I mean, long story short, if I was to guess, I think Son, Saka, Salah, Gordon, and Palmer will be the template midfield from Gameweek 16 onwards. I think the significant majority of engaged managers will be on this midfield in the times to come.
Okay, I can already see the comments. People saying, "Oh, that's so boring. Why have you got to pick the template players?" And for what it's worth, I will also almost definitely be on that front seven come 18. And yeah, with Darwin for next week as well. What do you say to that, Bakar? In a more kind of like macro sort of sense, does it ever annoy you? People saying, "Oh, it's boring going with the template picks." No, but they are template for a reason. What can you do?
I mean, it's fine because these are the same kind of people who would make fun of you if you ignore an obvious pick and he comes off, right? So you're so stupid, you ignored this player. I mean, it was so obvious that he was going to do well. I mean, it works both ways. I don't really pay attention to these kind of comments. I just play my own game. And generally, I'm a risk-averse manager, so I tend to go with the template because it makes the most sense, generally. And for example, when we consider the likes of Bowen, I mean, Bowen is an excellent option, but I mean, that 1.62 million difference that is in price, it's difficult to justify at this point, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Similarly, Sterling, I think Sterling has massive upside with the fixtures as well, like Bowen. But with Sterling is on 4 yellows. So you don't really want to be in a position where he misses a fixture. And Chelsea aren't exactly clicking. And I don't know about with Chelsea, I just don't think he's settled on a first 11 at the moment. And I don't really want to go there this week. I would want to give myself one extra week of information before I jump on any Chelsea players. In my personal opinion, I think this should hold true for a lot of people because, you know, a lot of people are looking to invest in the defense as well. I, for one, think that they could be excellent value in the times to come, but I just don't think this is the week because Everton are very good at home. It's not an easy fixture, and Chelsea are struggling a bit. I'd also like to touch on Hwang, Jack, while we wrap up the MBEUMO replacements. Hwang is popular. His numbers are great, and well done to those who've invested in him. I think he can do well in the Forest game as well at home. But personally, I wouldn't go there because he's on 4 yellows, and more importantly, because he will be going to the Asian Cup soon, which is going to be starting on the 12th of January. So let's say it's in like 4 or 5 game weeks from now. Do you really want to be in a position where you're using a transfer to bring Hwang in this week and then selling him later in 3-4 weeks, especially at a time when you have to address Son for the Asian Cup as well, when you have to address Salah for the African Cup of Nations. So you don't really want to be piling up those transfers at that point. So in my opinion, I'm not considering Hwang at all.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the logical answer there. And that, you know, going back to my question, yeah, it may be templates to go for the likes of Gordon and Palmer, but they are probably the best options. And also you can see here on the predicted points, the likes of Bowen and Sterling are expected to score very, very similarly to Gordon and Palmer over the next 4 game weeks. But as you say, Bakar, Gordon and especially Palmer, much, much cheaper, obviously allow you to do more with the rest of your team. Why wouldn't you go there? Now, let's move on to defence, because it's interesting. You mentioned Chelsea defenders. Yep. Just overall, looking at kind of everyone's team right now, unless you have Trippier and Trent in there, which a lot of us do not. I mean, quite a few have Trippier, but a lot of us do not have Trent in particular. Defences are looking extremely weak, whereas the midfield and forwards are looking good. Defence doesn't look good at all. Just to run through your team, still on the Arsenal double up with 3 very, very tough fixtures coming up from a defensive standpoint. Then Gay at home to Liverpool, obviously not good. Cash, who's been dropped, at home to Arsenal, and then Taylor away at Brighton. It's looking pretty bleak for your defence. What's going on there?
It is, which is why I think I have to use a transfer on defense as well. I mean, if MBEUMO's out, of course he'll go. But thankfully, I have the second free transfer as well, and I think this is the week to use it. I've been rolling throughout since wildcard in game week 10. I have these 2 free transfers intact, but I think this is the week where I finally use both of them, because the second one, as you've said, my defense is looking a bit abject. Especially, I personally think double Arsenal defense is not a huge concern, especially considering everyone has one, right? It's like, so I basically have one extra. I don't really mind it because from game week 19 onwards, their fixtures again are very good. So someone like a Saliba, I mean, he could be nice keeping from game week 19 onwards when they run turns. Even the next 3, when you look at this week, I'll come to the next 3 one by one. When you look at this week, almost all the defenders this week aren't great, because I was actually looking at the clean sheet odds, and barely anyone other than City has a clean sheet odd percentage of over 40%. So when it comes to City, you're not going to be buying a City defender because of the blank, and because Pep has said that he's going to change the system. So God knows who he's going to pick, right?
Yeah.
So there's that, and the fact that the likes of James. I mean, I was eyeing up James. James and Colwell, I was considering them, but I've sort of cooled on them this week, and I can sort of afford to wait this week because I do expect Arsenal to concede, but at the same time, I expect Chelsea to concede. In fact, the clean sheet odds suggest that both Arsenal and Chelsea have 31% chance of keeping a clean sheet this week, right? So that's sort of pertinent. And that sort of leads me to think that Cash and Gehi are the ones who are expendable, because Taylor's fine to keep. He's going to be stuck on my bench permanently. I think Cash will probably go for me this week because he's just plummeting down in value. I've spoken to a lot of Willer fans. I was speaking to FPL Will, and I was speaking to Adam Hopcroft, and both of them, they seem to think that, his minutes are very, very questionable from now on in. So if he's falling in price as well, then there's no point of keeping him. I mean, I've sort of hoped against hope that he might give me a haul at home to Sheffield United in game week 18, but I mean, that's looking to be a very distant dream, and that's not going to happen, in which case I think I'll sell Cash.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been kind of hoping. For me, it would be for a hit, I think, to get rid of Cash this week, just because unlike you, I don't have the 2 frees. Might have been an error on my part, but what do you think?
You're on Tsimikas. I don't have Tsimikas, so that's Chris Tsimikas you can play against Crystal Palace, right?
It's true. It's very true. But okay, it's right. So in terms of upside, then let's well, actually, you know what? Let's just talk about your transfers then. So if MBEUMO is out, you've said you're likely to go for Gordon, right? Okay, and then what does that mean for Cash?
That means the Cash will go as well. And Cash, there are not too many defenders who are like. It's simply through the process of elimination, I'm going to come to Pedro Porro, who's going to be the obvious defensive pick this week, even though his fixture isn't the greatest against Newcastle at home. One day ago, I was thinking to myself that, I've sort of ignored Porro for the West Ham fixture, so I might as well just ignore him altogether and jump to James for his beautiful run. But now I'm sort of thinking that, James could be a mistake with his expected minutes up in the air. He hasn't really played at all, right? So it's
strange. Really, really strange. I did not expect him to to Cucurella to start over him yesterday at right back. It's very surprising.
Exactly. So with Pochettino still not settled on a lineup, I just think James this week is too much of a risk to go for. As I said, I want that extra bit of information. Let's say if James does really well this week, then I can jump to him from Saliba next week. I can do that in one free transfer. So there's no reason to make that move right now. So, I mean, simply through that process of elimination, I'm coming to Pedro Porro. Now, Pedro Porro is nailed. He has attacking threat from open play. He's on corners in the absence of Maddison. He has good upcoming fixtures. You can't say that about a lot of other defenders in the game at the moment. He's just one of the few defenders that I like for upside.
Yeah, and there are so few. You're right. Again, I've mentioned this already, but if you compare the predicted points of all defenders, which I've got on screen now, you can see over the next 4 game weeks, the maximum really is Trippier and Trent at 19, compared to all the midfielders, even the much cheaper ones in the likes of Gordon and Palmer. They're expected to get more points or very similar to the expensive defenders. And then you'd have to come right down to get to the likes of Porro at 5 million, who's just predicted to score just 15 points. It's not looking amazing, but we do know that Porro has the upside that the likes of Chelsea defenders, well, the ones that we know are going to start, if there are any, probably don't have. Same with the cheaper Newcastle defenders as well. Okay then, so if Porro is going to come in for cash, what does that mean for your team going forward? Because that would leave you with 1.3 million in the bank. And obviously this is worth talking about because, of course, what you do this week will will be very important for future game weeks. Watkins from 18 looks almost essential, but does that not mean that you're kind of foregoing an expensive defender in Trippier or Trent who've been really good of late? Obviously Trippier with a couple of 1-pointers, but the fixtures turn for him now after the next game week, and we saw that he got a 12-pointer last game week.
Yes,
Who knows how well he did tonight as well, recording this on Thursday.
I mean, I'd love to have Trippier, but he's on 4 yellows. He can miss a fixture. And if I am to get to Watkins, if I am to get to Haaland, if I am to get to Salah, Son, Saka, I mean, these guys are the glue guys in my team. They're going nowhere.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have to decide between one of Trippier and Watkins. And I am going to go Watkins simply because of the captaincy shout in Gameweek 18, where he's clearly the best option. I don't really want to be in a situation where I'm sitting here without Watkins at home to Sheffield United, where Villa are putting up, over 2+ XG every game. I mean, God knows what they can do to Sheffield United. I'm not taking that risk. I am happy to forego Trippier for the next 2-3 game weeks because, I mean, we also have to sort of look at the fixtures in the long run. When you look at Newcastle, Son, Salah will be gone to the Asian Cup and the AFCON by 2021 at best. You can then jump to Trippier after that because, funds will never be a problem. You can get to Trent after that. These guys will come into consideration, but just the timing right now does not feel right.
I agree with that. It's just not. I don't know. It's kind of. I kind of do feel like how many points do these guys need to be getting for us to say, okay, it's worth getting them in. Trent 40 points over the last 4 game weeks, very impressive. But is it worth kind of ripping up your team to get him in? Probably not. Also, the fixtures aren't phenomenal anyway. Yeah, it's a tough one because obviously you're not saying that you don't want to own these players, but when you're looking at Watkins from 18, probably the best captain, you can't really forget about him and not go for him over the likes of a defender. Okay, let's talk about this week again. Goalkeepers. Who are you going to be starting in goal? Obviously, Dubravka came in last week. We don't know how well he's done this week yet, but Tottenham away for Dubravka, Areola away for Fulham. Dubravka, I will say, before you give your answer, is predicted to score slightly higher than Areola, but what are you going to be doing?
I think I'll go with Areola.
Really?
I think I will because...
Interesting.
I mean, it's the safe EO play in terms of expected ownership would probably be to pick Dubravka.
Do you think it would be? Because still a lot of Dubravka's still low owned. Still a lot of Areolas knocking about.
There are, but when you look at Trippier, Lascelles, Livramento, Share,
good point.
Right?
Yeah.
Newcastle defense is much highly owned as opposed to West Ham. So that's a safe play to cover the Newcastle defense because, as we've discussed before, a lot of people will be forced to play the likes of Lascelles. I think looking at your team, I think you'll be playing Lascelles, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people will be playing Trippier. A lot of people will be playing these guys away to Spurs, which is not the easiest of fixtures. So I don't really want to be in a situation where I'm playing either, to be very honest, because I do think both will concede. Areola will concede. I think Dubravka will concede. The safe place to play Dubravka, I think I would go with Areola simply because he has the better clean sheet odds. West Ham have been given a percentage of 27% as opposed to Dubravka's 20%. So I just think I'll go with that, even though, I mean, there's minimal difference between the two. What will you do? I think you'll go Areola as well.
I haven't decided yet. I'm tempted. I right now I'm on Dubravka. I'm gonna wait. And see. I'm gonna wait and see.
I know you're not.
No,
I
might. Honestly, I might. I have so little faith in West Ham, and you have to remember Fulham. Oh, okay, sorry. I have so little faith in West Ham, and you have to remember that Fulham have just put 5 past Nottingham Forest at home.
Let's assume Spurs put 3 or 4 past West Ham tonight as well, right? I mean, one narrative.
No, West Ham are going to win.
So, well, one narrative is going to say, "Oh, West Ham are so bad, they're going to get trashed by Fulham again." The other narrative will say, "Oh, look, Spurs have just scored 4 this week. How can I bench? How can I play double Newcastle defense next week?" So it works both ways, right?
It's funny that they're playing each other tonight, and then we'll see from there probably who we're going to end up going with. But honestly, I don't know. I just back Newcastle much more as a defense than West Ham. I've just been so disappointed with Areola. I don't see a world in which they ever keep a clean sheet. And I don't even think he makes loads of saves. I don't know.
I think he will make saves. I think he's good for saves. But I mean, he'll make as many saves as Dubravka. Because the Newcastle keeper does not tend to make a lot of saves as well. But yeah, let's see how it works going forward.
Absolutely. Let's talk about captaincy for this game week before we look at your AI recommended transfers. Debatably, it's an obvious one, and I'm sure that you'll be going for Haaland. Is it as obvious as it might seem on paper, though?
Yes, it is. I think it's clearly going to be Haaland for me.
You think?
Clearly. I mean, I expect a reaction from City. I think they'll beat Luton 3 or 4-0. Haaland will be involved. City have been projected to score the highest goals this week. Haaland is projected to have the highest share. So this seems too much of a risk to avoid him.
Okay. I was hoping for a little bit of fun there, a little bit of, it could be an outside shout, but yeah, you think it's a pretty,
I think it's a stretch too far. Yeah, I think it's a stretch too far.
Okay, that is fair enough. Right, let's round things off by looking at your AI recommended transfers first. Although I do want to ask you actually one more thing about chips after this. But looking at your AI recommended transfers by Fantasy Football Hub, of course, they are interesting, and I'm not sure that you're going to agree with them. But here we go. And BMEUMO out for Jared Bowen, who is a player that we've not really talked about, but back fit now. 90 minutes last game week. We'll see how many minutes he gets tonight. Depending on whether he looks good tonight, could be a good option. You've mentioned, though, that you would fancy Gordon over him for price reasons, but I think the reason why Bowen's being recommended here is because of Gordon's flag, and we're not entirely sure how fit he is, although, of course, he was pictured in training, and we'll know tonight how he looks. The other transfer is cash out, which, of course, makes sense, but it's actually Tsimikas in. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's got me thinking. It's interesting. But the problem here is that I will not be able to get Watkins in one move.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Exactly.
I'll have to make another transfer. So I want to be in a position where I can get to Watkins in one move in Game Week 18.
Yeah, exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, this seems good for maybe 1 or 2 weeks, but then, come 18, I'm not entirely sure that...
So basically, I've looked at these kind of... I mean, let's say if Tsimikas was Caldwell, right? So I've looked at all these kind of projections. So basically, it's Gordon plus 4 points versus Bowen, because all the transfers which involve Bowen involve an additional transfer.
Okay.
And in my opinion, Gordon plus 4 is better than Bowen. Surely.
Yeah, I think so. I think he has to be.
Exactly.
I mean, but I will say that last week, I mean, this is before we see what happens with Tottenham, but the AI recommended to captain Son. And so far, Salah and Haaland, who are the other main captaincy options.
Yeah, he's going to smash it.
Probably. I'd be surprised if he doesn't outscore them. That's for sure. And that is what the AI recommended. So sometimes it is very interesting just to have a look at the AI and see what it's saying and think, you know what? It's cooking right now. The team, as well, as I mentioned last game, the AI team is now into the top 100K.
Cooking.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Battering both me and Bakar. And it has Son captain. So we'll see how it does today. Probably going to get an even bigger green arrow. That is the sort of game that you really, really want in a game week like this. Anyway, last question. Let's talk about chips. Because for a long time, we've mentioned it already, we thought that perhaps free hit 18 might be viable depending on what it looked like was happening with City and Brentford, and whether or not they were going to double in 20, and how many Brentford and City players we might have in 18. Do you think that free hit 18 is still an option?
I don't think it is for my team. It isn't, because, and a lot of other teams as well, because if MBEUMO is out, then it becomes easier to navigate automatically, because let's say if you're buying someone like a Palmer has Wolves away in 18. If you're buying someone like a Gordon has Luton away in 18. So automatically it becomes easier, and it just reduces the upside. A lot of us will be jumping on Poro. So where exactly are you going to differentiate in Game Week 18?
It's very valid. I think the lack of upside now is quite clear there. And then for those with wildcards still that perhaps were holding it for 19, perhaps they're going to dead end into 18 and then wildcard 19 in preparation for the double that we're now not sure when it's going to happen. But it does have to happen. But it's looking less and less likely as each day goes by that it is going to be in 20. What do you say to those that have wildcard in hand? Should they still wait until 19?
I think you should revisit your strategy, because a lot of those who wanted a wildcard in Game Week 20 were going with the premise that the double will happen in 20. But now if it's not happening, then you should look at your team and revise your strategy, because I don't think wildcarding in 19 looks to be the most optimal strategy right now.
Okay, that is fair enough. And can't help but say that I agree with that. Okay, my friend, that is going to do it for this one. Good luck for the remainder of this game week and, of course, the next one. I hope you stay on a green this game week and then get another one next week, because then we're closing in on 10 green arrows in a row, which would be sensational. What do you think? Do you reckon it can happen?
I hope so. I mean,
of course.
Fingers crossed. But every single time I get my hopes up in FPL, it comes back to bite me. So yeah,
that is the beauty of the game. That is the beauty of the game. It's a cruel mistress. But
I like me being pessimistic.
Thanks for watching as always, guys. Remember, if you do want to see what Bakar ends up doing before the deadline with his team, then sign up to Fantasy Football Hub. Not only do you get to see Bakar's final team reveal on the website, but you also get access to everything that we've shown in this video. Good luck next game week, and me and Bakar will see you on the next one.